Okay, my name is Sherry Shea. I'm a clinical toxicologist, technologist by training. And so my job was mostly in the lab. So I see a lot of tox screens of people who overdose. So when Dr. Su proposed this idea of controlling opioids in a secure box like iPill, I was totally for it. I thought it was a genius idea. And because with my own background in toxicology, I believe all prescription drugs are dangerous, not just opioids. Because if it's not taken properly by the right person at the right dosage, it can have dangerous side effects. It can have dangerous consequences. And that's why I totally buy into this secure storage idea Dr. Su proposed. And also, he was trying to also develop a respiratory biosensor that you can monitor patients' respiration for respiratory depression, which is very important in my opinion, because that way we can monitor patients at home as the patients are being monitored at a hospital, so provide that extra layer of safety. And when he talked about his idea, and I really, really like it because, as a mom, we have kids and we worry about our kids when they're first exposed to the opioids, for the acute pain, when that we receive for, dental procedures or sports injuries. I have heard so many very promising young athlete scholars. They got injured playing football or doing track events. And then, 6 months later, when you just heard this tragic news that young person has passed because that person got hooked on to opioids and then overdosed. And then I just thought that, this could have been prevented if opioids is not so easily accessible, when you go home with a bottle of childproof cap.
Awesome, John. So why don't you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about how you came up with the idea for iPill.
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Dr. John Su. I'm an anesthesiologist, chronic pain management physician. I've been in practice for 28 years, and over that time, I've watched the opioid crisis start off as a small problem, and now it's a national emergency, and it's really gotten worse with COVID-19 issues and quarantine. So over that time, I've been watching different interventions to try to fix the opioid crisis, and every single intervention has focused on the pill. I decided that, when I treat my patients, I focus on the patient and the pill. So I was trying to figure out a solution where I could monitor the pills and monitor the patient at the same time. So that's where I came up with the iPill. I actually have a background in software design and integration. And then I also have experience as a drug development principal investigator.
Awesome. So why don't you tell me a little bit about the product? I mean, just by seeing the picture alone, I kind of get the sense of how it works. But why don't you explain the workflow from a patient perspective? And then essentially the tamper-resistant platform that you've created enables destruction of opioids as they're attempted to be broken into, et cetera. But why don't you give us a thumbnail sketch from your perspective about how the product works?
Sure. So the basic concept is a bank ATM. When you go to the bank, you have to use a card and a personal code to get into the ATM to withdraw your money. And you can only withdraw a certain amount of money, and you have a limit per day. So we have the same situation. We're using an iPill app that's the patient's phone, and they have to use a face or fingerprint and a personal code to authenticate who they are, so only they can get their drug and only at the prescribed dose. The iPill app then connects with Bluetooth Low Energy, just like a car fob connects to a car to start your car, and it connects to the iPill dispenser. The iPill dispenser is unique because it destroys the pills if you tamper with it with an FDA-approved solution. At the end of 30 days, or 90 days, whichever you decide, the pills are actually destroyed as well. So that means what we're providing is a secure storage, active control dispensing platform that safely disposes of unused opioids. And this is important because 3.3 billion pills of unused opioids enter our cities every year, and 9 million opioid units are stolen across the supply chain. That means that as we look at opioid addiction, it's made much easier because there's a lot of pills out there. In fact, a 2019 Boston University Medical Center study showed that only 1.3% of people who overdose on prescription opioids had an active prescription. They're getting their opioids from family and friends. And what policy has dictated is that we're limiting opioids. We can't do that because there's no other options. We can't leave patients in pain because they will go to the next drug available, including heroin, fentanyl, and amphetamines. And now there's a new drug, embezatline, that is not illegal, but it is starting to kill patients in Ohio. The reason it's not illegal is because the DEA has not put it on its watch list yet. I've actually made a call and sent an email to a contact within the DEA to ask them to add that drug onto the watch list as well.
Awesome. So I kind of, if I'm a person from a hospital perspective, this to me sounds like Pyxis for the individual. So essentially a drug dispensing cabinet, but at a very, consumer focused level. And certainly they've had great success in terms of controlling access to opioids in the healthcare setting. So this is just essentially extending that same concept to the consumer. It's brilliant. So how does is the product available today?
As of May 8th, we actually became an FDA Class 1 registered medical device. So that means we are now actively beginning to set up manufacturing. Our manufacturing is going to be using the company Enocon Foxconn. They make the iPill phone. They make the iPhone. Their capability is making 1 to 2 million iPill devices so that all opioids will be placed in the iPill dispenser. One of the reasons we're doing that is because we need to save lives, improve care, and reduce costs. The opening market that we're going after is the young people under 26 years old because they're the ones who use prescription opioids the most. They are also the ones that use non-prescribed opioids that they don't have a prescription for. And if they get addicted, there's a lifetime of medical expenses that we have to pay for. They are the first point of prevention that we can push towards the opioid crisis, which, by the way, is virtually ignored. Prevention and cognitive behavioral therapy are virtually ignored in this crisis.
So a couple questions then. One, is this iPhone only in its initial release, or would this also work on the Android platform?
The way we wrote the program is we have a core program with applets that allow us to upgrade from iPhone or Android without having to write two different platforms or two different programs. In this way, I can be as efficient as possible. I can upgrade over the internet, just like a Tesla car. I can make the app as seamless and easy to use as when a person uses a phone. The Pew Research says that 99% of the American population has a smartphone. We're banking on the fact that people like their phones and they're going to use their own phone to deal with this crisis.
So, who pays for this now? Is the insurance company going to pay for it because it has the potential to reduce illegal use of opioids? You know, who is the economic buyer in your business model?
Who we're approaching first is a dentist because they are the second highest prescriber of opioids. Next is addiction treatment centers, and then also clinical research organizations. We're actually just finished talking to CVS Aetna. They're the first company that has the foresight to look forward to prevention of opioid abuse. We presented and demonstrated to them that if they spent money on the iPill for at-risk patients less than 26 years old, the potential return on investment is $4.5 billion. Each death is associated with $1.8 million because each death is associated with 117 ER visits, 22 hospitalizations. Each abusing opioid member costs insurance companies $19,333. If you look at the whole picture of just CVS Aetna, and you make the calculations, which we have confirmed with actuaries, we can actually save them $4.5 billion. So we give the product away to patients to use. Insurance will pay for it because they can save money. We are also applying for CPT codes through CMS and HCPCS codes through HHS. So we're trying to cover all bases so that we are sensitive to the cost of the device for patients and also insurance. We're trying to make a win-win situation for everyone involved.
No, I like that. The other angle that I hadn't thought of that is, I think, a really interesting approach is clinical trials, where you're trying to ensure that the patient's being compliant of taking the medication, they're taking it on a timely basis, and so much of the administrative work around the clinical trial managers are really making sure that the patient's being compliant. So, you know, I think that's also a very interesting application of your technology. So generally, what are, you know, you'll ramp up production here over the summer, I assume, and kind of what is your targeted price point for the dispenser itself?
Okay, just to answer your questions back, and you're absolutely correct in the iPill device is like the Pyxis device in a hospital. So what we're trying to do is extend that the chain of safety from the hospital to home. Okay, so and then to answer your another questions about what stage are we doing our manufacturing? So we have FDA registration on May 8th, and so now we are doing a clinical study with Rutgers University, but we had so we had to manufacture units for the proof of concept studies, the clinical studies, and we're also doing one with UConn Pharmacy School and Medical School. So right now we want to, it's very important for us to learn about the patient experience before we can make this available to market. So we're thinking about making a few thousand units available for studies, and then for the disposal, if the product is disposal or not, due to the Drug Security Supply Act by the DEA, we have to make this product disposable. We cannot recycle it.
Oh, so you can't reuse the product. So
because of the opioid, they're worried about the residue in the opioid. Sorry to interrupt.
So how do they dispose of the unit then? So at the end of 30 days, a solution is then injected into the pill, which kind of destroys it. Do they take it to their local retail pharmacy for disposal? I assume they don't throw it away in the trash. Kind of what's the approach for disposing of the unit?
Actually, they can throw it away in the trash because there's no toxic materials any longer. The DEA-approved solution actually makes the drugs inert, and then we encapsulate all the drugs and that solution in a hard plastic container. So the drugs are actually destroyed and encapsulated. So you can actually throw the device away in the trash. We are RCRA state law compliant. One of the products we have is the iPill, and we've strategically linked with a company called Proteus Digital Health. So when a patient in a study takes the pill, we can record the time they take the pill. They can't take more than designed. But if we put a small digital sensor on that pill, when the pill actually hits the stomach, a Bluetooth signal is sent to a wearable app. So we can now tell when the patient accessed the pills and when it was actually ingested. The problem with CROs is that sometimes when you work with opioids, patients do gum the opioids and they say they took the opioid, but they actually didn't. Now we can make certain that we have actual scientific evidence that these patients have actually taken the opioid and it's actually being digested.
You know, is there anything in particular why you would limit clinical trial use to only opioid use?
Not at all. This could go to any drug, but since I'm an anesthesiologist and chronic pain doctor, these are things that are dear to my heart. We bootstrapped, like you said, and we put in $500,000 of our own money. We're 100% founder owned. In order to make the amount of product for the clinical studies, we probably need at least $750,000 because we need to do one or two versions of industrial design to make the iPill user-friendly. In market studies, we looked at what patients would like, and they said that they would like the device to be a little smaller. So we're listening to the market needs, and we're making the device smaller with the tamper-resistant properties of destroying the pills as well. So with that 750, what we would do is do clinical studies, probably 3, and produce product, and then go back to CVS Aetna and offer them a chance to put this device in all their patients under 26. Once that's done, perhaps we get a proof of concept, proof of validation of the concept, and we get a insurance mandate and then a federal mandate. And this may seem like a high goal, but it's already been done before. In 1967, the child-resistant cap was developed. By 1970, it was a federal mandate. So J&J settled with Oklahoma for $572 million. So the first call I made was to Medicaid Oklahoma.
Oh, I love that.
Now they got money. They have a huge problem. So we're trying to get a hold of them, but they've been busy with COVID-19. But then you have a win-win situation. You have people who are addicts who can get treatment. Only 10% of people who are addicts ever get treatment. You have money now, not from taxpayers, but from pharmaceutical companies who did something that caused part of the problem, and they're paying for part of the solution. The state doesn't have to use the money from taxpayers to solve the problem. Doctors will like it because now they can go back to prescribing opioids again to treat pain. Patients will like it because they're going to get their opioids. Chronic pain patients now can get their opioids. And we save money for the state, and we save money for politicians as well, because now they don't have to deal with all the opioid crisis issues. Most people would think that this is a hardware company, but we're actually a software company, because we're taking cognitive behavioral therapy information, putting it in a database, and then comparing that information with patient history information to then analyze the data so that we can predict which patients have a tendency towards addictive behavior. We can then upload this information in an anonymized fashion to a blockchain tree so that we can then manage the population. So we can decrease opioids in opioid addiction in the population. So we can prevent problems from developing and actually address the problem of opioid addiction, not just treat the problems without treating the source.
And congratulations on a really innovative idea.
Thank you very much.